to love an old monster movie. We're not talking about the Draculas, the Frankensteins, we're talking about giant monsters now. And giant monsters in general. Right. There's been a bit of resurgence for myself in giant monsters from Godzilla, Gamera, King Kong. So we're talking about the 30s onwards, maybe more the 50s with the atomic age. With nuclear bombs kind of being like, nuclear warfare kind of like being like the new Freddy Krueger sort of thing, or the new Dracula, if you know what I mean, in that sense. Well, I've been looking up a lot of monster films. We've been, there's been some good, there's been some bad, of course. And first of all, let's talk about the giant claw. The giant claw is basically coming to get you. It's a giant bird. It's a giant muppet, basically. It's a giant muppet looking bird, and the giant claw is an absolutely insane thing to actually watch. You can get it on Region 1 DVD, you can get it in multi-packs of DVDs, stuff like that, but it's a black and white 1957 B-movie basically about this giant bird that's been compared to a battleship sort of thing. And giant monsters were all the rage in the 50s and the 60s sort of thing, and they started to die in the 70s, you know, your Texas Chainsaw Massacre and serial slasher killers from Halloween coming to fashion sort of thing that was scaring audiences. But in the 50s it was a big thing, the bomb being dropped. Especially in America. Godzilla came along, of course. Let's just go back to the giant claw briefly. The Giant Claw is an absolutely insane film. Done tribute to it. It's a mental film. I keep saying it's mental. It's basically, all it is a giant monster on the loose. It's a giant bird, bigger than a battleship sort of thing. And it's eating people. It's eating people, like jumping out of planes in parachutes. It can go to certain speeds, and like it's got a giant nest where it takes planes back sort of thing, and like devours the cargo sort of thing. And all it is a giant muppet basically, giant puppet muppet sort of thing. Let's move on now. We have got Godzilla. Of course we know Godzilla. We spoke about Godzilla enough times, and the fear of Godzilla is basically comes from the fear of nuclear fallout. The original Godzilla film came in 1954, and part of that was like a man in a monster suit, a puppet, again the Muppet thing, with somebody controlling the Godzilla head sort of thing with like the hand. They had stop motion on the tail in some scenes sort of thing, and it was filmed from down below, so it made everything looked in proportion. So that's what was groundbreaking in the day. The original Godzilla film from 1954 from Show Honda, and then it went to be Americanized with Raymond Burr in America. In 1956, Raymond Burr, who we know from Ironside, Perry Mason, basically went on to be the starring role in the Americanized version of Godzilla 1954, but released in 1956 with a new dubbed soundtrack and scenes cut down and added scenes of Raymond Burr basically. The film that influenced that was The Beast from 20,000 Phantoms. That's a giant monster on the loose sort of film. The monster's radioactive, it's killing people that come near it because it's radioactive, and it was like found in an iceberg under the sea or something along the lines of that. And The Beast was a great film because it was stop motion by Ray Harryhausen. Ray Harryhausen was obviously influenced by the likes of Willis O'Brien, who did King Kong, animated Kong in the day sort of thing from 1933, and Son of Kong and Mighty Joe Young and all those natural monster films, I call them. But the most unnatural monster films I'm really going to be focusing on in this video, the best I can anyway, is basically like the creatures that we get in our nightmares. The stuff that comes from underneath the sea. And speaking of stuff that comes from underneath the sea, we had like the octopus film, didn't we? Animated by Ray Harryhausen, where the octopus only had 6 tentacles because it was hard to animate 8 tentacles, and that was It Came From Beneath the Sea. Another 50s sci-fi kind of monster mash sort of thing, but like there was that film by Ray Harryhausen, that was at 20,000 Miles to Earth, that one. As well, with like a giant gill monster sort of thing that was animated. I hope I'm pronouncing some of these titles right, because I'm not deliberately trying to get them wrong or upset people or anything like that. But those were films from the 50s that used to be shown on Channel 4 as well. Great films. It's shown on BBC Two, monster mashes and stuff like that. What other films are we missing out here? There was the 50s film called The Incredible Shrinking Man as well, which dealt with radiation, where a guy was exposed to radiation and he shrunk in a house basically, and like everything around him, like spiders were all oversized, cats trying to get him, animals, rodents basically, trying to get hold of the lead hero basically, who's shrunk into tiny sizes basically, and he's getting smaller and smaller. And it is quite a bleak film, that is actually, like a lot of these, if you ever look at the silliness of some of them, it is quite a bleak film, especially towards the end of it. And that's a classic. It's directed by Jack Arnold, who did, I believe, The Creature from the Black Lagoon. Moving on now, what monsters were there? We had Gamera, but that didn't come along till about the 60s, and like the first one was in black and white, they all went on to be colour. We had Mothra, that was in colour. We had Rodan. We had the Mysterions, that was Mysterions, that was a black and white film about overgiant sized robots. And then we had the monster films as well, where people were exposed to radiation and growing big. And I think it's called, I can't remember exactly all the films that came along where there were like that, but there was films where there's like, where the woman was exposed to radiation, the Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, something along the lines of that, weren't there? Which was remade in the 80s and 90s sort of thing. Monster movies, used to grow up on this stuff all the time, and just seeing what I've got up there, so we've got anything in particular. But you had your sci-fi films as well with the monsters in sort of thing, and I remember Reptilicus as well, Reptilicus from Denmark. That came in the early 60s, and that was, the monster itself was, again, it was a puppet. It was a puppet, and then what the lad would do would, he'd like throw green slime over to the running public who were trying not to laugh on film sort of thing. And like, it was like, originally that film was, well, at the start of the film, they're drilling for oil, and they hit a piece of flesh. It's monster flesh that starts growing into Reptilicus basically, another giant monster. Have you got any favourite giant monster films, guys? Just leave them in the comments below, what you like down below. It's hard to cover them all, but I'm just having a look at a short retrospective of giant monster movies, and classic stuff basically. I'm sure there's more to come, and I'm sure we will be covering more. I'd love to get a discussion going up at one point on giant monster movies from the 50s/60s. The peak era sort of thing. But in the meantime, take care guys. Keep watching the skies, keep watching the sea. Watch what you're doing out there. There could be monsters ready to get you. Stomp. See you later guys. Bye.